you're a software engineer, you're currently looking for a job, and you have ADHD, you might find this one useful. I'm Daria. I got diagnosed with ADHD in my 30s while making the switch into tech, and I thought I'd just share my tips for staying sane while job hunting as a dev with ADHD. Just a quick note, these tips are mainly for people who already have some experience in the industry. So if you're trying to land your first role and you would like some tips that are more specific to that, do let me know. Number one, manage your ADHD symptoms. I know it's not straightforward, but here are the 4 steps I think are most important to doing just that and have personally worked for me. Step 1 of managing your ADHD symptoms is to take your medication if you're prescribed. Aside from the obvious benefit of improved focus, many medications can also help with emotional regulation, and with that being a core symptom of ADHD, there really is no reason to make it harder on ourselves. The overall clarity that can come from taking medication can make it that much easier for us to implement helpful routines as well as the next steps. But whether or not you opt for a pharmaceutical treatment is a very personal thing. So if for whatever reason you don't or won't take medication, that is absolutely fine, and you can just skip to step 2. Prioritize your sleep. If you take anything from this video, please let it be this. I get it, some people are night owls, but if your sleep schedule is all over the place and you keep waking up tired and your day doesn't look as good as maybe you would like it to be, then maybe it's time to check in with yourself about this. Getting enough quality sleep is not some sort of boring boomer behavior. It's very important, and it sets tomorrow's you up with the tools that you will need to do well. You'll be giving your brain the energy needed to continuously make decisions that are good for you, making it more likely for you to build good routines. Like, for example, our next step, moving your body. There is a reason why exercise is considered one of the top treatments for people that don't take medications. Now, I know lots of people know that they need to do exercise, but they hate it because in their head, the concept of exercise means going to the gym or to run. But moving your body is so much more than that. It's the football league with your workmates once a week. It's cycling to work instead of driving. It's using the stairs instead of the lift. I personally go to the gym 3 times a week, and on the days that I don't, I just go for a walk. It doesn't have to be like a brisk walk that elevates my heart rate. It just needs to take me outdoors. And on the days that I don't leave my house, I very much notice that my mood is lower and my symptoms are worse. Step number 4 to managing your ADHD symptoms is to fuel your brain. Intermittent fasting is a very trendy thing right now, but it may not be the best idea for people with ADHD. Starting the day with a healthy breakfast with loads of protein will help you get your brain into gear much quicker, smoother, and help you sustain that energy for longer. This is especially important if taking medication makes you lose your appetite and forget to eat. You need to be especially diligent about fueling your body because this can help you mitigate that end of the day crash. Now, for my fellow ADHD women out there, a note about hormones. Our menstrual cycle has a massive impact on our physical and mental well-being, and that includes our ADHD symptoms. If you've ever felt like your ADHD gets worse around your period, those are the hormonal changes. So balancing our hormones is very important. And while the steps that I mentioned will help with that, another emphasis I would make is to manage your stress. So all of these steps that I mentioned, they work together to give you a solid base to build on top of. I know I sort of skimmed over some of these steps, so if you would like to hear a bit more in depth about them, do let me know. Okay, on to the actual job hunting stuff. We managed our ADHD symptoms in number 1, and now we have number 2, structure your day. Always know what you're going to be doing today. Assuming you've worked as a dev before, you can just use the same structure you had when you were working. You can also just tweak the hours to suit you. I find that the structure of a daily stand-up, even if it's just me, where I'm checking my notes from the previous day, really helps set me up for this day. This also means that at the end of each day, I do a wrap-up and I note down what I did today and what I'm gonna do tomorrow. So this means what went well, if I had any blockers, and how I'm going to overcome those blockers the next day. And I do the same at the beginning and end of each week. Now, if you're having trouble to find your structure, try this. Tune in with yourself and see if you can find patterns or triggers. Are there some things that make it easier or harder for you to start a productive day? For example, for me, I know that if I look at any YouTube or Instagram at the start of the day, I'm already getting that cheap dopamine, so I'm unlikely to actually do any of the tasks that I plan to out for myself. Number 3, body doubling. This is where you're around other people that are doing something similar to you and you feel yourself wanting to do the same thing. For example, If you find it much easier to start cleaning if somebody in your house has started cleaning, or you find it much easier to study if you're in a library with your friends, or when you suddenly need a coffee when somebody else is getting themselves a coffee. These types of things. A suggestion for that would be get together with a friend who's ideally also unemployed, and you can do like a study session together. It can be online or face-to-face. You can also use like a study with me website or one of the many streamers out there that do just that. Or you can go to a local public library. There's free Wi-Fi, usually quite strong study vibes there. I really recommend experimenting and finding what works for you for body doubling. For me, it's been a lifesaver, especially when I had a deadline and I was procrastinating with take-home assignments. Since job hunting can be such a lonely experience, body doubling can help with that as well. Number 4, don't swallow the frog. What I mean by that? Lots of productivity people like to advise that you should do the most annoying and hard task first to get it out of the way. However, for ADHD people, this advice doesn't tend to work. It tends to be more helpful to start with some sort of small task to get a bit of dopamine to get you going. For me, I split all of the endless tasks that are part of the job search into 2 columns, technical and non-technical, and then I split those into smaller tasks to make it less overwhelming and to know what I should prioritize. That helps me to pick and choose the small things that I know I can pick up quickly and start from. In the technical column, I have tasks like lead code, practicing system design, brushing up on buzzwords, that type of thing. I find this column to be the hardest to wrap my head around, so I actually put them off until I feel like I've mastered the non-technical column. I also don't do personal projects on GitHub because I just find them too overwhelming with everything else. These types of projects, along with the GitHub activity, come from doing the take-home assignments. Now, most of the time, these assignments I submit in a way that I'm not necessarily 100% happy with. This is largely due to just not being that experienced of a developer and just running out of time most of the time. What I should be doing is actually going back after I've submitted and completing those projects so that my GitHub looks really nice. And I'm sure that some hiring managers have seen my GitHub and decided to pass. However, many have not, and I have been able to proceed to next stages. Now, my non-technical column contains all the non-technical stuff, all the human skills, you would say, that I find a bit easier. And there are some tasks in that column, but luckily most of them just need to be done one time. First, create a template for your introduction story, for when people ask you, tell me about yourself. And that needs to answer the questions, who am I, what I can offer, and why I'm applying here. After you have that template, the only changes you would ever need to make are for the tech and buzzwords that are taken from the job listing. Another template you should have is something with a few stories and examples showing your impact from previous experience using the STAR method. Here again, you would only need to make a few changes once you have that template, and those would be the tech stack for the company and its company values that you can just grab from their website. Yes, these are a pain to write, but you only need to write them once and then just make small tweaks whenever you apply. This has been so beneficial to me that I have felt so comfortable during the non-technical stages of the interviews that I stopped prepping for them entirely, and I'm able to focus on just the technical aspects, and I still get very positive feedback on that part of my skill set. Number 5 is to keep going. A very smart guy once told me that all you need to do is to just keep going where somebody else would have already given up. You're going to have good and bad days, and if you've managed your ADHD symptoms, they're not going to feel as bad. And if you've kept your structure, then you'll have all of the information and all of the feedback to know what works and what doesn't. And you can iterate from that. Always remember to work with your brain and not against it. And if you're able to afford it, I highly recommend working with a therapist or a coach that specializes in ADHD. There's also lots of free resources out there. So if you search for ADHD coach or ADHD career, there's lots of good information out there. Specifically, I've been enjoying Karen McGill lately. She's fantastic. Yeah, so that's been me. If you're still here, thank you so much. Bye!